You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers.
Presented by CMH Heli-Skiing and Peak Performance.
Right on. Thank you for your patience while we got set up. Griffin, Griff, as people, what do you prefer? You like Griff mostly, right?
Yeah, Griffin.
You don't really care. It's your name,
yeah.
Right?
No.
It's your name. Well, thanks for having me at your house, man. This is my last full day in Jackson. I actually haven't made it up to the village yet.
Yeah, it's looking a little thin out there, you know, late November or mid-November. Some years it's really good, and other years not so much. So hopefully it kind of turns on. Winter's been a little slow to arrive.
I'm sure it will. People asked me if I was bringing my skis, and I was like, nope.
Like, no, this is a personal trip.
No, this is a work trip. This is actually, you know how I like measure it out is like, this is I'm not bringing my skis trip.
Yeah.
This is a like, yeah, I'm going to walk on. I'm not going to check any bags, and it's going to be glorious.
So nice to travel that way sometimes. You're like, oh, this is how the rest of the world
isn't it though?
Travels. You're like just free, not stressed about what's getting lost. And yeah.
It's like, so like, what do you take? I don't really talk about this much actually. So when you're going, what are you bringing?
Just travel wise.
Yeah. Like you're going on a TGR trip somewhere, and maybe it's not like it's like a destination ski trip. You're not doing any climbing or any mountaineering or anything. If you're going to say Japan for a couple of weeks, what are you bringing?
Just bringing like a few pairs of powder skis, and then
a few,
you know, 2 or 3. Never really know what the conditions are going to dictate. Like maybe you want something a little narrower. And then, yeah, the boots are always tough too. Cause it's like,
do you bring them on the plane?
I'm the guy that brings them on the plane because I've just like learned over the years, like you lose the boots and like
you're done.
It's kind of all over.
You can get through everything as long as you have your passport, your wallet, and your ski boots.
Exactly. And it's funny though, like carrying your boots on a plane, it's like just a beacon for people to like
ask you questions.
Yeah, chat it up. And especially like going to South America in the summer, people are just like fascinated. They're like, where are you going skiing? Like, it's funny. It's like a way to like, you know, find those other skiers on the plane, and like every trip somebody's, you know, coming up and
hey man,
hey, so you're skiing, it's July, where are you going?
Yeah.
And depending on, you know, what kind of mood you're in, like sometimes I'm just like, I don't feel like talking. And
I was talking to Todd yesterday, and I've approached people that I don't know, like skiers that I know but I don't personally know them, like a couple times in an airport.
Yeah. And
I've learned I won't ever do that again. So I ran into Gus Kenworthy once.
Yep.
And I was like, oh shit, Gus Kenworthy, no way. Okay, right on. I was like, hey Gus, I'm Mark. And he's like, hey man. And I'm like, yeah, I do the Low Pressure Podcast, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, what are you talking about?
Fanboying out a little bit.
It wasn't fanboying. I just want to get him on the show.
Totally.
I always want to introduce myself, or at least know someone a little bit.
Yeah.
Before I do the show. That's why I was stoked we met the other night. I went for lunch with Todd, and I was like, all right, cool, right on. He knows I'm not a weirdo, and now we can like, and the conversations roll a little easier. But so I went up to him, and he was just like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
And then another time I met JT Holmes in an airport, and he was like in line, and it was in San Francisco, and they had shut down a bunch of planes and stuff like that. I'm like, are you JT Holmes? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm Mark. I do the Low Pressure Podcast. I'm like, I have a card. Did you take stickers? Like that kind of shit. It was like my third year, something like that. I ended up at a friend's place in Tahoe a couple of years ago, and they happened just to be like family friends with JT, and he came over for dinner, and I was like, oh, hey man, nice to meet you. I'm like, I got this story for you. He kind of laughed. He's like, I don't remember that. And I'm like, I probably shouldn't have come up and talked to you anyways.
Yeah, totally. Somebody's all like frustrated with traveling already, and then you're like,
yeah, it's the absolute worst place to talk to anybody. So
totally.
I might just be like, hey, I saw you in the airport, and just to show you how cool a guy I am, I didn't come and say hi. Because when people in airports, I don't know about you, but I just want to like in my zone.
Oh yeah, I'm like the guy that like sits down and like somebody, you know, starts talking to me like in the seat next to me, and I'm just like,
you don't even say anything to them. Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, that's super interesting. And because it's tough, it's like I'm like pretty introverted, so as far as like talking to strangers go, that's not my jam at all.
Yeah. And
like the plane situation too is like there's really no definitive end to the conversation. Like if you're flying to Europe, like I'm thinking like as an introvert, like got a 10-hour flight. Like, when is this person going to stop talking? Like, I need to have some sort of hard out. Versus like on the chairlift, you're like, all right, this conversation is going to last 8 minutes. Like, there's a horizon line there. Like, I can get through it for 8 minutes. But yeah, I'm just not the guy that's just talks to the random stranger for the entire flight on the plane.
So I'm fortunate I have the gift of the gab, but I'm always, when I'm on, I'm on. And when I'm off, I'm off. I'd love if you like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm going to, Then open up a ski mag or something, and then there's a Griffin Post ad. There's like your face on it or something.
Yeah.
Or they open a magazine and they're like, huh?
Yeah, it's like a funny, like, passive aggressive situation. Like, how can I send this message without being rude? Like,
You just be like, hey, I have COVID. Don't talk to me. Or just something like that.
Yeah, just mess with them. Just be like, get off the plane.
Ding, 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 ding. So with the bags, okay, back to what I was asking about bags. So when I travel lately with podcast stuff, like I've been to Europe and New Zealand and everything. So I got my backpack with equipment, computers and drives and, shit that if the plane anything gets lost, everything in that bag I have that I need, drives and and then I have my briefcase.
Your replaceable stuff.
Yeah. And I've got the briefcase, the podcasting briefcase. But then there's also the gear pack.
Yeah.
And then the ski bag. So it's like 4 massive, big, fat bags, right?
Yeah.
So you're bringing 3 pairs of skis. And are you swapping bindings out, or you have 3 pairs of bindings on them?
I have, usually 3 pairs of bindings. Like, you got, 70-pound bag.
What is your like usual just anticipated cost? Do you build it in like for extra baggage? Do you know like, okay, I'm 100% paying for extra fees here? Do you just build it into your trip?
I'm like kind of a snob about traveling and what airline I go on. So
I'm
like a Delta guy. And so I've flown enough with them where I get like 3 70-pound bags, which usually, if you're bringing more than that, like you need to kind of reassess what you're packing.
So I always have found that wherever I'm going, there's usually like an airline that gets you to that spot. Like coming down here, it was United. Yeah. And then you go to certain places and it's Southwest, or you go to certain places that it's Delta. But do you always try and pick Delta?
Yeah, no, I'm like Delta pretty much. And I'll like kind of go out of my way to make sure, or like, even if it's not the quickest or most convenient, just because it's between the bag fees and then just like, I don't know, the quality.
Are you on like the Ultra Gold membership level where you can go sit in the lounge and stuff?
Yes. I spend a lot of time in airport lounges, and then it's funny when you get used to traveling like that. It's I don't know, traveling's kind of nice. It's like the one time in my life where I don't feel pressured to like do anything or like be working. Like when you're on the plane, you're just like sitting and you're like, oh, there's no emails to respond to, and it's like, this is just Griffin time, and I can like watch movies and not feel bad about it, or read and just like
100%, man, 100%, absolutely. He's like, I'm gonna sit and stare.
Yeah, and that mentality of like, oh, I gotta be productive all the time. Like, it's funny, that's like the last little safe haven from like
that's a good
not
point.
Feeling guilty about what you're doing with your time.
I agree with that, but also it doesn't really work for me that much because I'm like, oh, cool, I've got 3 hours to sit and just work.
Yeah,
because I find I'm always feeling like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like if I'm at home, like I like going places where I'm not at home. I'm not a coffee shop guy. I don't like that kind of stuff. But I'm at like another person's house. Like I have a friend who's got a house in Whistler, and we had a bunch of people stay there I have 3 awards, and they were nice enough to let us use the place. And then I hired like a cleaner, and I spent a couple days doing laundry for all the beds and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I really needed to be there for like half a day. But I set my computer up, and it wasn't my house. I didn't have to vacuum that. I didn't have to put this away. I didn't have to worry about those little things that are always on your mind. And I was just click-clacking away, and I got tons done. And then sitting on the computer, I'm like, oh, cool. 3-hour flight. I'm going to be able to edit this entire episode. I don't need the internet for it. I can just do that, and boom, that's done.
No, 100%. And yeah, like when you're working, you're like, well, I'm out of the house, but I'm also getting stuff done. So you're like,
way more productive. I'm out of the house for 2.5 hours. I'm at the house for 5, and I probably get way more done. I remember like last week I had a 45-minute task. It took me 5.5 hours.
There's always a distraction to like find you at home. You're like, oh, I should probably clean up a little bit before.
Oh, there's a new pizza review video. Yeah. Oh, click.
Like, what's on this? I wonder if this website's been. I get like obsessed with the weather too. Like, I have this like series of like different...
You look outside and you're like, oh, it's raining, and you're like, yep. Looking at the app, oh, it's supposed to be raining.
And I was like, I wonder how much it's raining, and then or like snowing, and also I'll go to like the weather stations they have around here. I was like, oh, it's snowing a little harder up further north. And then
is that like a result of you like checking weather and getting into weather for work and for trips and stuff, and it's just like a carryover? It's like a habit that's been formed?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. Like when I was little, I was obsessed with the weather, or like obsessed with snow. My like parents, I think, really thought I was going to become like a meteorologist, because I just watched the Weather Channel for like hours, and it's really only like a 10-minute loop that they play over and over again, and I'd just be like glued to the television, and they're like, oh, do you want to like get into weather? I was like, no, I just really want it to snow. And so like this is how I find out if it's snowing and or if it's gonna snow. And that like, and yeah, to your point, like it's kind of just evolved into this like monster over the years, where now I'm like, I have this like series of different websites that I click through until I find the forecast that I want that tells me it's going to snow. I'm going with that one.
This is the one that I like. This is the one I'm going to be talking to people at the bar about tomorrow. Did you ever take any courses or anything? Like, I know you have to do a little bit through like ski ops courses and like Abbey courses and whatnot, that they cover weather patterns and they cover like certain clouds and that sort of stuff. But
yeah, no, I've never taken a like actual course. I kind of want to.
My grade 12 geography class did a huge thing on weather, and to this day, it's like it's the one thing I specifically clearly remember, like, and have held on to.
Yeah.
Have like, what's the word I'm looking for? Retained the most. And I'll just be randomly like, I was with Wiley the other day when we were driving over here, and he's a pilot, so he's got to do weather classes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Wiley, what are those clouds? And as he was answering, I'm like, lenticular. And I remembered. And I was remembered.
Yeah, no, that like it's so fascinating, and it like dictates so much of like our lives and what we do throughout the season, that it's worth investing in that like understanding, especially if you're like in some remote area and you don't have like, I can't go to my 10 different websites that I want to like check out.
You've got that one radio channel that you get.
Yeah, exactly. You get the robotic
1444.
Like, yeah,
barometric pressure is dropping to
wind is northwest at totally.
Yeah. You listen into that for 4 hours while you're sitting in the tent waiting out the storm.
Yeah, exactly. Just that's my like white noise. That's how I was
gonna say, I don't think you can see the big tent set up in behind your place here.
Oh yeah, with the 2-meter dome set up.
What are you doing in there?
So I put like this wood burning stove in like a big North Face 2-meter dome, and there's a couple different companies that sell these aftermarket, like it's a chimney flue that you sew onto the dome, and then you like cut the tent material away.
Isn't those usually for like canvas tents and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And I was talking to the equipment guys at the North Face, and I was like, so am I gonna burn down the tent if like I get the stove too hot? They're like, it won't catch on fire.
It's
like,
melt.
It might melt. I was like, cool, as long as it's not catching on fire, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
But it's sweet. I got this.
Oh, there's a stovepipe in there.
Yeah, it's like a 1-pound collapsible wood burning stove. So yeah, it's tiny. It's like this, 12-inch by 8-inch by 8-inch box.
Would you be able to take that on the plane?
You could take it on the plane.
Three pairs of skis and a wood stove.
Like, you can basically live in it if times get really tough.
Yeah. You just setting it up, and is that like the spare room back there?
I know that is it. I joke that it's the guest room or something. I'm going to Airbnb as like a side hustle, like $100 a night for the, Jackson Hole skid experience. You can stay in my
dude, man. You could probably charge some good prices for that midwinter,
right? You can set it up wherever you want.
The Griffin Post experience.
Yeah, no bathroom access, just
piss in the yard.
Yeah,
there's the piss tree and the poop hole in the back there.
Yeah, totally. The neighbors would I don't know if they'd be particularly pleased.
I bet you if they cut them in, like put in a quarter, they'd be like, "Yeah, we're down."
It's a housing crisis. Like we need to come up with unique solutions, and I think
absolutely. It's so bad here. I've heard.
It's
just talking to a few people here, like it's bad where I live, but I think it's even worse here.
It's wild, just the amount of friends that I all of a sudden just don't have because they've just moved. Like they've gone, either moved over the hill to like Victor and Driggs or moved back home. It's like, I don't know, Friday night, or feel like being social, and I'm like, who lives here anymore? Like, who can I actually hang out with? And it's just a bummer. It's like such a, it's like that soul of the community is like just
it's getting sapped out by these multi-million-dollar houses that are empty for 50 weeks of the year.
100%, and it's, I don't know. I think like for the first time in like ever, I've kind of started to consider like leaving Jackson just because it's, not the community that I really, it's not the community that it was when I moved here.
And then people too, they get a little older and they stop skiing as much and start having kids and things. And I'm the exact same boat, right? I've been living in my little place for like 10 years. It's where the studio house, everything. And it's right in town. Like it's like you live right in between town and the mountain.
Yeah.
Like this is a prime
perfect
spot. Cool little
location.
neighborhood. You said you've been here a while. It's like it's hard to leave when you've got it dialed so nicely. But then those thoughts do creep in and you're like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that,
No, I agree. And you think like long term about like, have kids one day, and then like who are they going to be growing up around, with that unbridled wealth and the, I guess, for better or worse, the things that brings with it. It's like, I don't know if it's the most like conducive environment to like raising like well-rounded kids.
Yeah, because it's so wacky. It's so wacky.
When
like how do you make sense of that and then this? Like how come there's all of that and then we're like it's like we're like returning to Lords and Serfs.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's, I don't know. It'll be like interesting to see how it plays out because I think we are on the cusp of some sort of like, I don't know.
I was talking to Kate today at lunch about that, and she was mentioning kind of that sort of thing. She's like, I hope there's going to be like some sort of a correction.
Yeah,
but we don't know what that's going to look like, and it may be worse than what's the breaking point, right?
Yeah, it's like the restaurants can't stay open.
We have
hire people.
We have the exact same problem in Whistler too. It's like I know it's like J1 or something here in Jackson. It's like where all the Argentinians and they get that work visa. None of them are here, and we have Australians in Whistler, like an immense amount of Australians because they've always been able to get a 2-year work visa, part of the Commonwealth. That they really don't have to do anything, and they've been able, and for a while they were able to just renew them.
Yeah.
So dishwashers, lifties, all of those entry level ski town jobs were normally Australians, and then the ones that wanted to stick around, they would move into like regular jobs and all that stuff. But they're not around now, and restaurants aren't being able to open, and like they don't have enough staff on the mountain, and like Vale's like, oh yeah, we're gonna be just fine. We're like, no, you're not.
Yeah,
it's not. It's like
and
everything's gonna suffer from the grooming to the snowmaking to like how well the lifts operate to
100%. And the lure of a free ski pass can only go so far. If you're, the local pizza place here, I think is starting people at like $35-$40 an hour.
$35 an hour to wash dishes and make pizza, sweep flour off the floor.
And you're like, what? Or I'm not sure what the minimum wage or the starting wage.
Wait, what do the pizzas cost?
The pizzas are still the same price. That's what everybody asks. So they're doing, that business owner is doing an awesome job, like taking care of his employees and
give him a shout out.
It's Pinky G's Pizza.
There you go. You hear that, Pinky G's?
Yeah.
We'll give you the riffs.
And I know this just like, secondhand more than anything.
Trying to hook you up with some free pizzas, man.
Go to Pinky G's. It's delicious.
You need a picture of your face on the door next time you walk in. Well, I don't know, it's a bummer. I know we can talk about it, but we're not solving that problem right now. So I want to talk about you a bit more. I want to learn about you a bit more.
All right.
So I told you, everybody knows the amount of research that I do. It's just the minimum. I don't write questions down. So I went to your website today. You're born in Austria?
I was.
Do you speak Austrian? Do you speak German?
I do not. Ich brauche Hilfe. That's pretty much all I know, which means I need help.
Parents were Austrian?
No, my dad was working in the ski industry for head Tyrolia, actually. And we lived there until I was like 1. Then we moved to England, and then we moved to Chicago, and then I moved to Idaho when I was like 6. So we bounced around a lot when I was younger, and Idaho's really where I grew up, though.
What part? What area?
Sun Valley.
Okay, right in Sun Valley. They've got a cool. It was neat because I was like, in the spring or in the summer, like this trip that I'm on now. I always like to do like a podcasting trip in the fall, right? I used to always start my shows like Thanksgiving, And then I'd go some kind of a trip, try to do a ski trip. And then I realized, I'm kind of missing out on a couple of months or a month and a half of like people frothing about skiing. So I started,
people get excited in like October.
Yeah. So I'm starting to do them beginning, middle of October now, right? Like a few weeks early. So, and I'm like, hey, ski movies are coming out. That's kind of my jam. I can talk to a lot of people, let them promote their movies, because that's kind of what the show is all about. And then I always like to travel and go to these new zones. A couple of years I ended up going to like Tahoe, and then skied a bunch of zones like around the lake, everywhere from like Sierra and then some Palisades or Old Squaw, I guess, and just reached out to a bunch of people that I may have known or met, or people that know people, and just
hit up JT again. You're like, hey man, it's me from the airport.
Well, that's where I met. That's where I ran into him at my friend.
Nice.
I ran into a friend in the members only locker room.
Yeah.
I was like, Natalie, what are you doing here? She's like, I live here now. She's a Canadian.
Nice.
She's like, oh, I live with my boyfriend. We're down the road. So they're like, oh, do you need a place to stay? I'm like, sure. So I went crash at their place. JT shows up for dinner. I was like, oh, hey man, remember that time?
Yeah.
But like, so that's kind of the plan is I get to meet a bunch of people that I never got a chance to meet, but because they're referred to by people that I already know that I'm going to go see. So this, I was thinking maybe Sun Valley, because I know there's a big crew in Sun Valley. It's a place I'd like to go visit.
Yeah, there's all sorts of good characters. A lot of like ski town history there. I mean, it's where the chairlift was invented.
For real?
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, first chairlift in the world. It's on Proctor Mountain.
Really?
Yeah. So it has such a cool legacy of like ski racing, and just it was the place to be for a long time as far as like destinations for celebrities.
That's where Powder Magazine got its start.
Yeah, Powder Magazine, Warren Miller.
Warren Miller too.
A ton of really cool culture, and just like the people associated with it too are just like so stoked on skiing, and might not get the most snow, but when it's good there, it's amazing, and it stays good for like weeks.
It's like a 5-hour drive from here.
Yeah, it's about 5. It's a good buffer.
Everything's about 5 hours.
Exactly.
I was trying to plan out the trip. Where can I go? So I was like, Bozeman, maybe I get up to Whitefish. No, wait, no, that's 5 hours away.
It's 5 hours in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and then I was like, all right, but then we're going to drive down to Jackson. I'm like, okay, that's about 5 hours. I'm like, where's Sun Valley? Oh, 5 hours that?
Salt Lake, 5 hours.
5 hours, yeah, exactly. Everything's just spaced out.
Totally.
Spaced out perfectly. So you were there for how long?
All through high school. So.
So you grew up there. That's home. How come you moved out here?
I was.
If it's that great.
Yeah, I was going to school in Denver, and I wanted something like different, and similar to Sun Valley, but like different enough, like that felt like I was kind of, I guess, growing as a person, and like being out on my own a little bit more. In Jackson, checked all the boxes as far as terrain, snow, and I knew like TGR was here, and it was such a quick decision. It's funny, like thinking back on it. I remember I was just driving. I was like, I should move to Jackson. And then like 5 minutes later, I was like, yeah, I'm going to move to Jackson. Like it wasn't like that much debate. And I had a couple friends here, and being able to, have an into the community is always helpful. And I think I stayed with them for one night, asked them if they knew anybody that was renting a room, and they connected me with somebody. It was like $400. No first, no last, no deposit. And next morning I was pretty much moved my stuff in and was ready to go. And like that, now thinking about that, that's kind of like unheard of. Like,
well, back then you could do that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's that, like, when people are always like, oh, I wish I was born 10 years earlier or whatever kind of thing. You can only deal with what you have, but
yeah,
I'm in that. I've switched to that state now where I'm like, I'm glad I got here when I did.
Yeah, for sure. And be like appreciative of like, yeah.
Right.
It's a better way to look at things.
So how old are you when this is? So you went to school. What did you go to school for?
I got my undergrad in finance and marketing, and then I got my MBA as well. So
awesome.
Did an extra year at Denver. They had this program where you'd go an extra year and get a master's degree.
In a year, that's great.
Yeah. So it was way cheaper. Stayed undergrad, financial aid, undergrad tuition, and so it was like. So
you're adding to that funny stereotype about ski towns being like the most educated bums in the world, or like
exactly, yeah,
most educated, least compensated.
I fit in well to that category for sure.
Have you ever done anything with your degrees?
I would say my work with Kastle, being the marketing manager in the US.
Oh, you're a marketing manager for Kastle?
I am, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that keeps
yes,
keeps me on the business side, and just being able to like understand like those bigger concepts, and there's a lot of nuances to any industry.
They probably love you for that too. Like, oh, he knows.
Yeah.
Are you the guy that they go and ask questions to?
Um,
Hey man, we're gonna deal with this weird logistics or this weird like lawyery thing. Can you help us out with that?
sometimes,
Yeah.
but most of the time they leave that to the professionals, I think.
Or you just fake it and be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we're like, yeah, you just throw out some, business jargon, and people are generally impressed.
Have you been there for a long time?
With Kastle, I think I've been there like 12 or 13 years.
Oh wow,
so.
since it really was kind of gotten,
Yeah,
they really refreshed. When like Hugo and they picked up
Exactly.
when they
It was
picked up
like
Hugo and stuff.
2007, 2008.
Picked up Hugo and they wanted to start like really kind of pushing back into the free ski market rather than like the mall sports store market sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so the brand was dormant for like 8-10 years, from like the late 90s to the mid to late 2000s.
I was buying Kessleys in 96, 97, 98 kind of thing. And I had these like the monocoque construction. I remember it was just like this,
totally.
the super foam core that would just disintegrate, exploded two of them. And I wasn't a very good skier, but I exploded
I don't think
them.
this should be happening.
Yeah. I'm like, again?
Yeah.
My dad's like, I'm not buying you another pair of skis. I can't afford to buy you another pair of skis, man. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
And so, the brand was relaunched. I actually like helped unload the first container that like arrived in the US.
So you were there right from the beginning of the relaunch.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was Davenport that kind of was part of that?
Yep, Dav was on.
Is he an owner?
He's not. I'm not sure how that. At one point, he had a small share, and I shouldn't say that. I don't really know.
Don't know
the details of that.
Not for you to say. That's fair.
For me.
But he was involved.
Speculate.
He was involved, right? Did he bring you on, or how did you end up getting brought on with Kissley?
Yeah, I was the team manager at Smith, Gabe Schroeder. I like hit him up and was like, Gabe, anybody looking for athletes? And I think I'd had some success. I'd won like the US Extreme Freeskiing Championships, and he's like, yeah, Kastle, they're new. I was like, okay. So he connected me with Dav, and that's who kind of brought me on. And they had like Hugo at that point, Dav, and a handful of other athletes. And I remember going to the first like kind of camp or like photo shoot with like Hugo, who I'd looked up to like my entire career. That was this like, he's this guy that's like larger than life to me.
He's a dude that would... The straight line skier who would go bigger and stomp and never, ever, ever was off of his feet unless he was in the air.
Yeah. I mean, you look back at his footage even today, that's probably like, I don't know, 15, 20 years old, and it still like holds, still totally valid.
Still right. Like that is the craziest, biggest line I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He pointed it straight and he just stomped to feet. Boom. Bolts every time.
Yeah. Just like,
So strong.
4-point landing, super strong. They actually made him like a special pair, like the Hugo Harrisson.
No, I know. So our buddy Toby knows him well, and I have a few friends that have purchased Hugo's old skis.
Yeah, it basically has had the same amount of like same amount of metal as like a race ski.
Yeah.
But it was 108 wide, so it was like this two huge Titanal layers, and you could just. Like looking at the sidewall, you could just tell that it was just like so much beefier than like any other ski.
He's such a and it's funny because his skiing and his personality don't really match.
100%.
He's the most mild-mannered, happy, quiet
meeting
guy.
him for the first time. I thought he was gonna be this kind of like aggressive, like macho dude. And just
Hugo,
like
right?
Super, like
He's just like
quiet, really friendly, like just so like authentic.
He'll look at you like this, like
yeah.
Not say anything, just smile at you and nod.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, all right. Man.
I've known him a little bit, like chat with him here and there, and
Yeah.
whatever. I keep forgetting. I'm like, I gotta get that guy on the show. Him and PY, I want to get him on the show, maybe together. But I played hockey with him a bunch of times, and I think one of the first times I ever saw him was like a drop-in men's league in Whistler. I'm like, shit, that's Hugo. Oh, awesome. Yeah. I was expecting him to just be like, whoa. I'm like, no, he's just a regular dude playing hockey. And like,
it's just French Canadian, like
doing what he does. There's a big crew. There's a big crew in Whistler, the French Connection. That all the boys used to ski together, like PY and Hugo.
Yep.
A guy named Matt Miller, a guy named Alex Blazer.
Yep.
That would all just mob around the hill. There's
Matty Richard.
Like, Matty, Matty.
Matty's another awesome dude.
The Cajuns, Matty and Dahmer and Slicer.
Yep.
Slicer just moved back to the East Coast. Dom's still sticking around. Those are guys that never really... Matty's the one that really pursued it.
Yeah.
But the other two were just as good skiers.
Yeah.
That no one knows about.
Under the radar, just amazing. Who's the other guy? Christian.
Oh, Little C.
Little C.
Yeah, Little C.
Just such a shredder.
Yeah, and he's this compact little super shredder. You probably competed with him.
Yeah, we did like a year, I think, on the tour, like kind of overlapping. And soft spoken.
Do you know he's a jockky?
No way, really?
Or the last time I spoke to him,
that checks out.
The last time I spoke to him, it was years ago, and he was talking about going to jockey school or wanting to become a jockey or something like that.
Like jockey school, all right.
I would think so. I don't remember exactly, but this is what my memory is serving. But it was 100% like jockey, so like Max Arsenault.
Yep.
Like rest in peace, Max. But he was living with Little C for a while, so I'd go over and he was telling me.
Jockey school.
Do you know Dave Gariani as well?
I'm not sure.
No.
Maybe.
Anyways, but yeah, that's funny. But yeah, the whole big French connection. And a lot of those guys would have, if they figured out their own thing, but you'd see several pairs of Hugo skis all over the mountain, the year after.
Yeah. I had a pair that was like a 195. Like, I skied once and I was like, there's no way I can ski this. And so I was selling it at a garage sale like the next year, a couple years later, and this dude kind of like comes in all big time. And he's like, I can, ski all the stuff you guys do. I just like don't want to put in the time to like be. So I was like, cool, that's great. Like, then these are the skis that you need. I sold him a pair of those. I never saw him on the hill. Like, I did that once.
We used to do this some Solomon stuff. Like we used to have like a Solomon community night right when GoPro first launched. Our buddy Tyler was the team manager for Solomon at the time. This is like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago when the GoPro 1 came out.
Yeah.
And so he ended up getting that job, and he came back to Whistler. Tyler Gig, I'll give him a shout out. Came back to Whistler and said, "Hey, everybody!" I calls all of the boys, all the crew. He's like, "Come to the Solomon store." We show up, and he's got like skis and helmets and boots and like all sorts of Solomon stuff, all with our names on it.
No way.
And he's like, "I got you some stuff, boys." I'm like, "What's this for?" He's like, "Just ski with it. Just cruise around the mountain. Just ski with it and do whatever you want to do." Like, well, what do we have to do for it? Nothing. We're like, no, we're gonna do something for it. Like,
too good to be true.
He's like, no, just be on this. You ski every day. Just be on the hill and like, it's your presence. And then a couple of the other guys like, well, maybe we should do something. Like, we should get like a movie night or something. And we started doing these movie nights, every month. So we'd get people to do like an edit and bring them in. We'd have like 17, 18 of these edits. They'd be, half of them would be like 6.5 minutes long. And it would be just someone's knees going right? But so then somehow I got roped into doing like a demo day up at like Sun Peaks one day. And this is when they had the El Dictator. So it's like Cody ski, just big, straight.
Is that the one that had like one directional, or it was like narrower in the...
No, that's the BBR.
Oh, the BBR.
That was the weird experiment BBR. But this was basically like a 192... I think 110 underfoot or something like this, and it was just straight directional badass. It's like one of those skis that you could straight line Corbets with a cup of coffee in your hand sort of thing.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Super damp.
So we were doing this tent thing, and I had a pair of my skis and the other guy had a pair of his, and we weren't really demoing that. Actually, it was during the BBR. We were actually demoing BBRs at Sun Peaks, and some guy comes in, he's like, what are those? And Kyle's like, oh, this is the El Dictators, blah, 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 Cody Townsend skis on these. He's like, oh, I want to try those. He's like, are you a good skier? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm a great skier. And I'm looking at him like, Kyle, man, like, don't do it. So sure enough, he's like, Mark, give him your skis. I'm like, all right. So he takes one run up. He's like, yeah, cool. I'll take him for about an hour. Comes back, like, literally up and down. He takes them out. He's like, yeah, no, I can't ski these, man. Like, I can't do it.
Turns out this isn't for me, actually.
No, not at all. Not at all. Do you have any like input with like development of the skis and stuff now?
Yeah, we talk a lot about
Is there no Griff's Pro model?
So at one time there was a Griffin Post Pro model, and I was so stoked. I got one pair, and then I was pretty,
They only gave you one pair of your own Pro model?
Yeah, I was pretty hard up too, and so I ended up like I skied them for like half a season, and then I had to like sell them to basicly pay rent.
So you just sell your own Pro model ski?
Yeah,
one they gave you?
Yeah, exactly. And they had sold out for the rest of the year, and like they decided to change the graphic or not like continue with the Pro model, so they didn't keep making it.
So you don't have it.
So I don't even have a pair of my own Pro model skis. Every now and then I see a pair floating around.
Would you just be like, hey, can I have those?
Yeah, so they're usually like in the wrong length. I forget what they came in, like 187 or 88 is what I was skiing, and I only seen that pair like once, and I saw him. I rode the chairlift with this guy, and I'm like, hey man, I will trade you your skis straight. Like, what's your boot size? I'll trade you your skis straight up, like at the top of the lift.
For these brand new ones.
Yeah, they were probably.
Did you tell him why?
I was like, I was like, hey man, my name's on your skis, and I don't think he fully got it. And he's like, no, I really like them. I was like, you sure? These skis are like, just mounted them, like they're brand new, like.
He's probably like, you're being weird. You should have been like,
he's like, this is.
You should have told him that story. This is my pro model that I had. Tell him that story.
I know. I was a little bit too like coy with him, like just not upfront. But he's like, no,
it's an introvert version of yourself.
Exactly.
Right? If it was me, I would have been like, take those off.
Yeah, give me your skis. Yeah. So the old MX-98. You know, if anybody out there listening sees a pair with Griffin Post on the back of them,
what is it? Tell them right now. If anybody
MX-98 has Griffin Post Pro model on the back. It has like a red hollow tech. It's like a red and white ski, and I'll make it worth your while if you find that ski in a 180-ish length.
All right, everybody listening, there's a pair of Kastle Griffin Post Pro models. Look for them. We're gonna find you that ski.
I know.
All right, it's my new mission.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Just like
put it on the wall, man.
It's gonna go in like my crawl space with my other old skis.
I'm just gonna keep them, not look at them. Put them on the wall or something.
Yeah.
You can put like up there. That'd be a good spot for a ski, up on the bulkhead there.
Yeah, there's all sorts of places I can do it.
All right,
Thank you for reminding me of that. I forgot that I.
Well, it's good. All right, so if you're listening, we're gonna see if we can get you these skis. If you have them, or you know someone, or you keep your eye out, let's do it. Because we've had like other things like this too, where someone's mentioned something they can't find it, and someone's like, "Hey, I got this."
Yeah.
And I'm like, just send them through.
Why I didn't think of this earlier? I could have really rounded out the archives with.
There you go.
One of the pro models.
So you're what's this is like when like or late like 2010ish kind of thing?
Yeah, it's probably exactly 2010.
Yeah.
And it was the career was kind of getting going, having some momentum, but you're still like not really making that much money obviously when you have to sell your own skis to make rent happen. And yeah, from there I was just, on that contest grind for probably 4 or 5 years.
Right, because you were US Freeskiing champion a couple times, right?
Yeah, I won the US.
And you're wearing your sick bird belt.
Got a sick bird belt buckle. That's always, I don't know if they even give that away.
They don't do it anymore, I think, because it's like they're not trying to promote that.
Recklessness.
Yeah.
That's smart.
The Ill Eagle Award. But
yeah.
I asked you if you put that on because I was doing the show, and you're like, nope, this is just my everyday belt buckle. I'm like, yes.
Well, yeah, what I wear every day, it's, one wearable trophy. And going through like TSA, we're talking, the agents are always like, what are you, bull rider, roper? I was like, skier. They're like, huh? Like, never mind, just give me my shoes.
Give my shoes back. So you did that for 6 years?
I think, yeah. So
that was before they merged, right?
Yeah, I was there when they had the US Freeskiing Tour, and then I got on the Freeride World Tour the first year that they had it. I got a Wildcard spot.
It's like 15 years ago, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and I think like Matty Richard was on the tour. We had a good American-Canadian crew traveling around. First time I ever went to Europe, and my mind was just like completely blown. But those contests are like, I was thinking about it the other day, they're just so gnarly because everybody is so good. And they're all so hungry. And, at that age, I was like, fit that description perfectly. I had like a chip on my shoulder because I was like, I'm just as good as these guys. I can send just as hard, but I'm like kind of low in the pecking order of pro skiers.
Mm-hmm.
And just the stuff you'd ski and the conditions you'd ski it under, you're like thinking back, you're like, man, I'm so lucky I made it out in one piece. Like
it boggles my mind, man. Like I've been traveling with the tour a little bit off and on, like going to events, and I was in Europe last year, and I followed it quite a bit, and I'm still like, no. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Marcus Eater's film that he just put out?
Yeah.
That spectacular wizardry. It was like Candide and then more. I watched him do that in person during a run at Fever Run 2 years ago. He did this crazy run that was like, oh my God. And then he just over-rotated a little Lincoln loop on his last hit. And if he had landed it, it was like quite possibly one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed. Yeah. And it was like a live version of that movie.
Yeah.
Like the shit they do. Like Sam Smoothie.
Yep.
He was, compatriot like a...
Yeah, he's lived on this couch for like weeks.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
Should I be sitting here? No, but that have you seen his... Like, it's in like the top 5.
Andorra run.
It's like the top 5 lines ever. Yeah. And it was just this sketchy, crazy thing where he's literally like hopping from patch of snow to patch of snow on like a 45 or like a 50-degree angle. And I'm like, how did you not die?
Yeah, and you look at just the whole atmosphere. It's like just so intense, and you're talking to everybody else at the start, like listening to what they're gonna do, and you're like, wow, like if that guy's gonna do that, like maybe I need to step it up a little. And it's such a weird mental game of,
and
like,
it's so crazy too because
you're hanging out there,
because you're traveling with like the family, right? You're traveling with everybody, but you have one run, like you have 5 runs in a year.
Yeah,
you have 5.
That's if you make it.
If
you might only
it,
have 3 runs.
3 runs in a year, but you've put it's so wild to me, man. That's why I'm fascinated by it.
It's just the mental side of it, and as you said, like you probably spent like an entire year at least on the qualifying tour getting to that point where you just have 3 runs, and then you crash once, you're like, all right, I have to stomp the next 2 runs, and it's, I don't know, it's not a
week from now and 3 weeks from now.
Yeah,
right.
I have like so much respect for like the guys that are still just
doing it, and it's I don't know, it's fascinating. I'm a big fan of it. Like, we've been talking sports and stuff. I'm a huge sports fan, any kind of sports. I'm hopefully to do some stuff with Freeride World Tour again this year. But like you were talking about, you've got some sports, you're doing some sports betting lately, and I know that during the events they have like, who do you think's going to win this, or who do you think's going to win that, kind of a poll. But I'm like, I kind of want to find out if they're going to do like sports betting on it. Like, I've got 400 to 1 on Hedvig.
I know in Travis's contest, natural selection, they're talking about incorporating that into
some sports betting.
But it'd be so hard.
Are they going to open it to skiers?
I don't think so. Well, I think maybe long term there's some speculation that would happen, and it'd be this like all encompassing kind of action sports.
That's an amazing event, but like, come on, dude, let's get some skiers in there.
Yeah, it'd be pretty rad.
Because you'll see them approach the runs differently. You'll see the snowboarders, they kind of hit the same lines and kind of more or less the same areas.
Yeah.
You get skiers in there, they're going to hit that shit way different, in a different angle, different takeoffs, different hits.
And I love, just watching the way, snowboarders look at something and the way they use terrains and how they like flow down the mountain. It's, I don't know, I would say it's like almost at times like a little bit more like artistic than like the skier mentality. Like, I'm going to send that thing as big as I can, and like, just like,
it's almost a little bit more art involved with it. I'll admit that for sure.
But that would, like, having, the course that they built at Jackson, for instance, is, amazing. Put so much time into this terrain, and it seems like it'd be, nice for if it got expanded to skiers.
Give us a try, man. Or just, I bet you, like, you and some of the TGR crews could be like, hey, let's bring us out for a day. Like, there's a lot of snow in the forecast. We could go ski the storm, and then it's going to fill in, and then we'll be good for your thing. You're like, we won't ruin it. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Throw us a bone.
It was fun. I was talking to the Euros that were in town for the contest, and they're like, so are you excited to have all these features to, like, go hit after the contest? I was like, no, you guys get this on the one day a year, like the perfect day. Like, it's been closed the entire season. It's, like, so fresh. Like, as soon as they take the ropes down, it's going to be like a mogul field, and nobody's hitting that stuff.
It's gonna be gross.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you gotta take advantage. You gotta get the inside track. So you're talking about your competition days. Now, I've heard you are somewhat of a superstitious person. In certain
I am
in certain ways. Whereas it reminded me a lot of like hockey players, where like you have a specific set of, for lack of a better term, tasks or things you need to do.
I would say it borders on OCD.
Okay, you said it, not me. Right?
I think I've gotten better at it over the years, but especially in the competition days, like never wear matching socks. Like always, have the exact same breakfast in the exact same seat. And like it got to the point where I'm like, this is really like kind of affecting like how I live, just because I'd have to do everything in such a certain.
And I've heard like you got to keep your skis on the certain side of the door at night, like left side of the door, and like I'm sure you put your boot on the right, like one boot before the other boot.
100%. Once you have that day that goes well, it's like, okay, I need to do everything the exact same, and like that little stuff, like where you put your skis, like. God forbid you put your skis on the wrong feet, and you're in the starting gate and you look down and you're like, oh no, stickers are usually on the right ski and they're on the left ski.
And I've heard even like, you're standing at the top of a line and you're about to go and you have to like do like certain touches and certain adjustments.
I'd forgotten about this stuff. Now you're going to bring it back into my life and I'm going to be like, I'd gotten through this.
You're going to be thanks. Now I'm comfortable again.
if I had like a negative thought, I'd have to like gently like tap on my head or like brush on
to get it out of it.
Yeah, just I have no idea, like.
And if you did something in the wrong order, would you have to like redo it again, or if like you were about to start a run and you did it and they're like, okay, pause, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, I'll like kick off my skis in the starting gate and put them back on, and like stuff you shouldn't be doing. Like,
yeah,
you should be like focused. And
is this something that you've been concerned about in the past, or like even like maybe I should inquire or like investigate this a little further?
You know, I got a sock sponsor, so like had to start wearing matching socks, and you know that was like the domino that fell. That I was like started.
Oh, it's not so bad.
Yeah, I wore matching socks. Nothing changed.
That kind of horrifies me because I don't think ever in my life I'm the exact opposite. I cannot ever wear unmatching socks. They have to be the same. I have a bit. That's why I asked you, because I have a little bit in me too.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain things I have to do.
It's way more convenient to have to not wear matching socks than, you know.
Not if you live your life the way I do. If there's a sock and there's only one and it's like a couple of laundry cycles and we still haven't found the other one,
you just
poof, it's gone.
Yeah, it's fair.
But I get it. But that kind of fascinates me because I was a big hockey fan, and that's a big in the hockey world too, right? Big superstitions with like, you put this one on, you put that on, you tap something 3 or 4 times. There's like all these little superstitions, like, oh sweet, I got 3 goals tonight. Well, what did I do? Oh, okay, well I used this soap. Yeah. Right?
It's like 5 clicks with the poles always, like before you start. Most people are, you know, 1 or 2, and I was like, it's got to be like right hand over left hand over right, then 1 tap with like just
that's right. Specific. Hey?
Yeah.
What other ones?
It's a wild ride up in the brain, man.
And is it just with skiing, or is it like regular? Is it like leaked into your regular life? Like you got to touch the doorknob 2 or 3 times and then make sure it's locked.
Yeah, the negative thought thing has definitely like leaked into my regular life.
I'm sorry. I'm kind of like that with the stove, but that's probably the good one. Even though I've like turned the stove off, and I know I've turned the stove off, and I'll walk to the end of the driveway and I'll be like, damn it, and I know it's off 100%. I could just get in the car and drive away, but I have to go and look at it, and I have to touch all the things sometimes, and then I'll leave.
But every now and then you're right. You know, you go back and the stove is on, and you're like, this is why I go in every time and check.
Yeah, one day I will be. Yeah.
But no, that's another one. But I think that's a pretty common one, to be like the stove. Like,
oh yeah, the stove for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. I can be able to focus the rest of this interview because I'm like, I wonder if the stove's on.
Can I see it from here? No, I don't.
Yeah.
So actually, funny story. So, I did an interview with Johnny Collinson, in France, like the week before everything shut down for COVID. We were spending a week at Youth Thrive camp. He was coaching, or being the draw for that camp. So I got to hang out with him for a week. It was super cool. We're staying in this lodge, this really awesome lodge, in Flane, and we wanted to do an episode, but it was kind of really no really good spot for it in the lodge. It was one of the first ones I started to try and start filming, sort of thing. And so we ended up going down into the suite of the people who run the lodge, like, so they let us use their house. So they were up, you know, fixing dinner for everybody, all the guests, and doing all that kind of stuff. And they're like, yeah, we set up down here. And for some reason we turned the stove on for something. And we're about 35 minutes into this episode, and I look out of the corner of my eye, or Johnny looks out of the corner of mine and does one of these, like, and look, the stove is still on. I was like, oh shit. So we got up and go turn the gas stove off, and I was watching the video, and like, there it is, you can see it burning in the background. So it's actually something that does happen, so maybe we should go check.
Yeah, no, it's good. Would have noticed by this point, surely. Right.
I read that you're a writer as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that writing was kind of born out of that you know, those early days as a quote unquote pro skier, where you're making some money, but you really need to, like, you know, you're not really making enough.
You're hustling. And it's like, what can I do? What's my hustle? What can I do?
Yeah, total grind. And I was like, well, I've always enjoyed writing and going on these trips anyway. Like, you know, it's a good way to parlay that, you know, experience on the trip and creating something that's, like, you know, both valuable and like tangible, and like seeing
it's something that you can like have and keep at your house, unless you need money and you got to sell it.
Yeah. Sell my old magazines.
Your old magazine articles.
Archives.
Was it mostly articles, or did you write any books or anything?
Mostly articles.
Yeah.
I wrote a screenplay as well.
Oh, no way. About what?
The ski town, of course.
Do you have it still?
I do. I think it's somewhere.
Oh, nice. Did it go anywhere? Did
No,
you do anything
I
with it?
didn't get it across the 1 yard line. I spent a couple months writing it, and when you get so involved in something, and then all the books say you need to take a break and give it 2 weeks and then go back, and that's when the real work starts, because you can write 120 pages of garbage pretty easily, but once that editing process kicks in, that's when it's the heavy lifting.
I get it. Even for me with doing blurbs, so I've always been a last minute podcast releaser guy. I used to release these shows at 1 PM, and I would get up at 8.
Yeah.
And then I would start the editing and releasing I would edit. I would do my intros. I would build the web page. I would do all the social posts, and I would release it by 1 o'clock. And it was a scramble every Thursday morning. And then this year I started to do them at least at 9 AM. So it forces me to do them a couple of days in advance. And what I've noticed is every time I've gone back and read the little blurb or the little piece that I wrote about it, I'm like, oh, click, and just start moving things around. I'm like, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Right? I've had a writer friend of mine be like, yeah, it's not very good. I'm like, well, it's because I have 5 minutes to write it before I click something, right? And it's just I'd be a good BuzzFeed writer or something like that. You know what I mean? Or
totally, something that's just
HuffPost.
Quick. And
just super quick, super short, blog kind of things like that. But I know what you mean, and that was just a small little version of me being like, oh, you take a minute, then you go back and look at it and be like, oh, that's trash, and this is how you fix it. Yeah,
you come back and you're like, oh man, this needs a lot of work. And it's not 200 words that need work. It's 120 pages of all right, do I really want to and then I probably I should have seen it through a little bit more, at least sent it out and had it read by somebody, and maybe they're like, you're awful, or
cool. Maybe you're onto something, you just need a little experience and a little guidance. That's what an editor is for, right? And
the whole the whole impetus for this screenplay writing, I've kind of been thinking about it, then to this random series of events. I went to this event in LA or Laguna, staying at this hotel, and they brought a bunch of people together, and it was Johnny Collins and Drew Peterson, myself, and then a bunch of Hollywood people. We're nobody really knew what we were doing there, why we got invited. We were
why are the hairy dudes over here?
Super pale, hairy dudes.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there and we're playing games on the beach, and I'm talking to this guy, and I'm like, so what do you do? What's your scene? He's like, oh, I'm a writer. I'm like, oh, what do you write? It's like, oh, I write movies. I was like, cool. Anything I would have seen? He's like, oh, I wrote Dodgeball and all that. I was like, wait, you wrote Dodgeball? He's like, yep. I'm like, you're the guy that wrote If You Can Dodge a Wrench, You Can Dodge a Ball. He's like, yep, that was me. I was like, you and me are gonna be buddies.
Yeah.
And I just poor guy, pinned him all night, just figuring out how he got into it and writing.
And then you're like, so I wrote a screenplay too. And he's like, oh, here it comes.
Yeah,
here it comes.
It's so funny you say that, because I was so close to saying that. And I was like, this is your chance. This is, that serendipitous moment where you're like, this is my break. And we've been having a few beers, and I was like, I went to the bathroom. I was like, yeah, you should totally talk to him about your screenplay. And then
it's almost do I ask her out? Am I going to ask her out now? Do I talk to him about my screenplay?
Yeah. I was I had this moment of clarity. I was like, no, don't do that. Don't, that's somebody coming up to you at the bar and being like, hey, I ski. How do I get
It's like having someone come up to you at the airport being like, hey, I have a podcast. Do you want to be on my podcast?
And so thankfully I didn't give him my pitch, but maybe that was my big break and I just really blew it. So.
Or you could have got his number and been like, hey, you know what? I didn't want to bother you with this because it's super cliche and I actually have this thing and I don't know if you have any time, but if you do, I'd love some feedback.
Okay, so...
And then he steals it and puts out a ski movie.
Full disclosure, I did that was my plan, and I slid into his DMs a couple days later. Crickets. I was like, man, I thought we had this really good chat, connection. Nope.
Oh, bummer.
I was into that. So
does that crushed your dreams?
I mean, getting rejected in DMs can be pretty crushing.
Screw that guy, man. Screw that movie. It wasn't that good anyways.
Yeah, I was reading the reviews of his last one. Wasn't that great. So
who was it? Was it Judd Apatow?
No, Rawson. He just wrote Red Notice, which just came out. And
is that the one with the
Rock?
The Rock and Ryan Reynolds and Salma Hayek?
I think so. So I guess I haven't gotten over it. I still keep tabs on him,
You're all bitter when you see one of those movie trailers come in. No,
Dodgeball was better.
So you just didn't do anything. I want to read it, man.
I know. I can give you a minute. I send it out to a couple of people. Nobody's actually read it, so you can be the first one to.
What's What's the storyline?
It's called 90 Day Wonder, which I'm not sure if you guys use that term up north, but essentially it's who we call people that move to town. They're all stoked and they make it about 90 days before
seasonal. We call them seasonal workers or seasonal employees, right? We don't.
Before they realize they can't cut it. And,
the 90-day wonder. They start doing too much blow and party too much, and they just run out of cash and like, I cannot handle this.
Yeah, classic. Fish out of water. Finds herself and ends up saving the ski town, and it's kind of like Out Cold meets Trading Places,
right?
Which sounds like they won't go together, but I tried.
Then is it like more of a comedy?
Yeah, it's meant to be funny, and for some reason, I chose to write from with a female protagonist, which I thought was a bold move for my first work of fiction.
But these are the stories that you hear and everyone just shakes their head. I'm like, that first one was just so bad. Yeah. But then they write more and more and more and more, and they get better and better and better and better. Yeah. Would you consider writing more stuff?
I would. I consider going back and like cleaning this one out, getting the first 10 pages in, which apparently is like where you sell the script or not, and then at least like sending it out and trying to. Again, like
so you haven't given up on it. It's just paused.
Simmering,
Yeah, it's always in the back of your mind. There'll be a moment in time when you'll be like, all right, maybe the next pandemic. You're like, I got time to write my manuscript.
Yeah, oddly enough, I finished it before the pandemic. It seems like all that time alone would have been a good time.
That's the time you needed to rest on it, though.
It's true.
That's the time you needed to
flush out some more jokes.
Not everybody can be like a Tom Clancy or a Stephen King that puts out a 900-page novel every year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I had an idea. Click, 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 click. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, and truth be told, I used a lot of like anecdotes and like stories from like my own life and friends of stories that I've heard, and I was like, man, I wonder if this person is gonna like, if this ever gets made, if they're gonna see it and be like, hey, this is pretty. This happened to me. Like,
I've thought about that too, because like, I obviously like Superbad. I think about that a lot because Seth Rogen grew up in Vancouver. I grew up in Vancouver, and I remember watching that movie and being like, there's some similarities here, just the way that they go to do things or where their parties are doing whatever. I'm like, there's a lot of similarities to this. And, everybody has stories over the course of their life that they go back to and tell stories. I have so many of these stories. And I'm like, I'm going to start writing these down. And if you could like basically just get a framework and insert some of these stories and then create that find a way to create them like through a linear narrative.
Yeah.
100%. And I'm like, it would be kind of similar to that, but I can see where that was written because that's how you fit it in, right? I'm sure you've got tons of those.
Yeah, exactly. You just need that common thread that can,
right. What's the storyline and how do we put all these little vignettes in there?
So it's about this girl that moves to a ski town.
Yeah, tell me the story. Yes, all right. What's her name? What's the lead character's name?
I think I just need to use like a placeholder like Becky or Rachel or something like that. I felt like, once before we went to production, we'd have a lot of discussion about what name would have been appropriate. So Rachel or whoever is, moves to this town. The town ends up being, the shady real estate agents or real estate developer works some deal where they like essentially like move to privatize the resort. And she has this, I think, God, it's been so while since it's been a long time since I've thought about it. She basically comes up with this scheme to like bring the town together, and they're able to like raise enough money to like outbid this like real estate developer. But then in the end, he like somehow, does something shifty. So she like loses the town, like hates her because she's kind of the person that.
Who's her love interest?
Definitely a love interest.
Yes, you got
like
one. Yeah,
Jake or like there's obviously the B plot kicks in at page 30, and
you get it's Ross. His name's Ross. That would be like Rachel the ski girl, and then Ross.
The
love is Ross.
Well, I'm feeling creative when I came up with the names. But in the end, they use all this money to actually short the real estate company, the developer's stock, and because they have some inside information. And I don't know if you've watched Trading Places, but that's essentially what they do in Trading Places. They short the stock of the real estate company, and the town ends up owning the real estate company, and everybody's happy. And of course, Ross and Rachel make out in the end
while they're sitting on a chairlift, overlooking the town, kind of thing. With that shot from the chair above. That's cool, man. That's really neat. I can see just you talking about it. I can see light up. I'm like, oh, this is. They're gonna pull it out. I think and look at it again.
I know.
Have you done a lot of like article writing and stuff too?
Yeah, I did. Like I want to call myself like a beat journalist, but I wrote a lot of articles for like ESPN when they had like a ski website, and Powder and Skiing and Freeskier and all those places. And they're like, writing's funny because if you're really into something, it's so easy and like effortless. If you're not into it, it's like just so painful and just kind of soul sucking. And so once you get a few of those assignments where you're just like, it's just work. It's like less.
It was more. Oh,
passion
did you do
and,
more
like,
assignments with that rather than like, oh, I'm on a cool trip, so I'm gonna just write some things about it and then submit it, see who wants to buy it? It was more the latter or the former rather.
It was
than
probably
the
50-50.
Yeah.
I like pitch articles, and like editors would come to me like, hey, can you write something on that? And you're like, well, I'm broke, so I should probably say yes. But it was a good, like, I know writing it's so hard.
50
like,
the 10 best bath bombs.
Yeah, exactly.
After a day
People love lists.
After a day of skiing, listicles, 10 best bath bombs for a pro skier after a big day on the slopes.
And like some of that, like journalistically, like, I don't know, those, I want to be funny at the end of the day. I want to like entertain people and not like necessarily, covering some hard hitting stories and really what I was good at or strong at. And so like, if you're writing something that you're, is going to stir the pot or like that's going to be controversial, you're like, I don't know, this isn't who I want to be as like a writer.
We had there's a guy named Mikey Nixon. He's a really good writer in Whistler, and there's this one spot on Whistler. Have you skied Blackcomb before? Are you familiar with it?
No, it's funny, I've only sledded up there. So.
Okay, so on Whistler, there's like this zone called Spanky. So it's like it's the big mountain zone where everyone goes steeps, airs, drops, big pows. The best spot, right? And it's a boot pack to get up to. It's a short little boot pack. It's called Spanky's Ladder. It's nothing serious, but it gets lined up. Like people line up, and then sometimes it goes almost all the way back up to the chair. And then when it opens, people start shuffling up, but then people also zip past the line and create a new line. We call it the dirty line. And he wrote this article about the dirty line, and it was that controversial thing that just hit. Everyone's like, "Whoa, no, you should do this." Like people, you see people coming on the dirty line and they're too close to the line, you stick your pole and give them a smack with a snowball or whatever. But they get down and it's like a vertical, like boot pack scramble through the rocks to get up. And a lot of times it's people start getting shit. Oh, no, you shouldn't do that. I have no problem with it because I've snaked the dirty line many times myself. But I've also spent a lot of time hiking that line. But what you just mentioned there kind of, it was that's an exact example of like maybe you're triggering a little controversy in the town.
Keg that's like
whoa, it just went it went farther than we expected, and then they put like a little rope just to kind of like
ropes were hung up like,
it was like a post and,
lines.
like a post and a rope. It didn't really did a little bit for a bit, but it was like that right what you're talking about. So, and because I guess you're pro skier, represent TGR, probably represent Jackson Hole, I'm assuming, as well as a writer. So for you to put out something like that, maybe not be the wisest move.
Yeah, exactly. And just like the, drama that you don't strive to create. Like,
you don't seem like a drama guy.
No, it's just such a waste of like.
Unless you decide to write one.
Yeah, so if it's fiction, it's one thing. But because I like react to that stuff, like what that criticism, or if you get like some sort of troll on social media, it's like always like the same process for me. I'm like read the comment or read the feedback at first, and it's like, what an idiot, like don't worry about that. And then like 8 hours later I'm like still thinking about it. I'm like, oh man, that guy's like, I'm gonna don't worry about it. And then like the next day I'm at my computer just like well, this is what I think, and like just like seething, just being so pissed, and you're like, oh, what a waste of like emotional energy. And like,
oh man, do you find that when you get like the trolls or the shit talkers, and then if you do respond to them, they're just like, oh yeah, I didn't think you'd call me back. Hey man, I love you. Can I get like a photo? Or like they want to. A lot of times they just push buttons. I think because it's just their way of connecting with you. And then when you act like, oh shit, it worked. They're like, hey man, I think you're great. And you're like, fuck you, dude. You just called me a hack. You know.
Yeah, I'll respond once, and then a lot of times you're like you said, it's like this kind of understanding. It's like, oh cool, like we're engaging, like all good. And then other times they like come back at you, and at that point I'm just like block them and move on with my life.
Fair
Just
enough.
not worth it, spending that energy.
Fair enough. Well, we didn't even talk about like ski. We're gonna wrap it up here soon, but we didn't even talk about skiing and stuff. Like you were in Stoke the Fire from this past year's movie. How did that go?
To be like totally honest, it's definitely like the least excited about like my skiing I've ever been. Just like the trip that I filmed on, we just had really tough conditions and like didn't get to ski the way I wanted to. And
now, does that get you more fired up about this season to be like, all right,
I'm like I'm very good at like using like failures or shortcomings to like fuel the fire. I'm like, all right, like let's do this better. Like what went wrong that trip and like how am I gonna do it better this year?
6 pull taps this year.
I didn't do any pull taps. That was probably one of the big problems. And
you had gotten away from it, man. You're trying to
wearing the same socks.
You're trying to heal yourself and got away from it. But hey, you know what? It seemed to work.
Yeah. Look where that got me.
Yeah. Do you have anything lined up or any specific plans or anything you're excited about for this season?
Yeah, I have a couple cool, different projects that got this like treasure hunt / ski mission, which I'm afraid to like describe in too much detail because I haven't like worked out all the nuts and bolts how it's going to work. And then just some like, being able to travel a little bit more and being able to go to Canada and Europe. It's just like
a little bit of normalcy.
Yeah, such a blank canvas, and hopefully, knock on wood that like everything stays open and we're able to like move around. It'll be great to be able to like, I guess, breathe and stretch your wings a little bit. And yeah, it's just like, it's funny, like this time of year, like if you had a good season the year before, you're like, man, I'm starting from scratch. But conversely, like if you had a bad season, you're like, cool, I'm starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it can be very like intimidating or inspiring based on like how you've skied the years before.
Yeah. Cool, man. Where can people find you?
On Instagram at Griffin Post, and Twitter and Facebook, same thing at Griffin Post.
You got your website too. You got some
my
stuff
website
on there.
That was up. I actually checked today. I was like, wonder if the website's still working.
That's where I got all of my research done. That whole paragraph, that first paragraph. I'm like, this is all I needed to know. You got that cool little Ski Griffin logo. I
know, that was actually awesome. They the guys at the North Face, the equipment guys, designed this like Griffin with, it was probably hard to tell, but like,
2 skis.
They were actually fence posts, and so like that was their
Griffin Post.
Their clever little.
There you go.
I was like, "Oh, you guys made this for me!" Like the guys that manufacture or that design the packs are hilarious, and they just have like, I'm not sure if they have a lot of time on their hands or what, but they always like the samples you get. They'll put like something kind of like individual, so they put that like Griffin like silk screen onto like the backpack that I was helping them design.
You get that stitched onto your stuff,
Exactly. I'm gonna hold on to that one. Hopefully not have to sell it for rent money.
Well, thanks for having me at your house, man.
Yeah, for sure.
We could easily talk for another couple hours, so we're gonna have to do another one. Maybe when you make your way up to Whistler next time I'm down here. I want to come back down and go skiing.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Jackson.
Yeah, I've always skied Jackson. I skied Jackson twice back in like 2009 and 10, but it was like early December.
Gotcha.
We had one real good day on this first trip where we got like a foot overnight, and we skied skiers right out into
like Rock Springs.
Thank you. I always want to call it Magic Land for some reason, but
it is kind of Magic Land.
Rock Springs. There's lots of little airs and fun little. We skied Rock Springs and that little chairlift that brings you back.
Yep. Union Pass.
Yeah, that was awesome. So I was like, I got a real taste of what Jackson can be.
Yeah.
But it was still always early December, so it's been on my kind of bucket list to get back here. And of course, it's November when I'm here this time. But
yeah, not a lot of.
But this is kind of I always do things with intention, right? I come down, I flew into Bozeman, came down here for the tour. I've got like 5 or 6 episodes done.
Yeah,
get to meet a bunch of really cool people, but I'm also really scouting out couches.
Yeah. It's a fine couch.
This is really, yeah.
I wasn't joking when I said Sam Smoothie slept on here for like 6 weeks. So.
Awesome. Well, everybody listening, go into your basements and check the garage sales and check the ski fences for what was it? What is it?
MX-98 Griffin Post Pro model.
The Kastle, and it's white and
White and red.
White and red. Does it have the little circle?
Yep. Little front and back, little hollow tech.
And are they the red? Is that the red bit?
That's red, and the sidewalls, I believe, are red too.
And the skis white.
And the skis white.
So if you have Griffin's skis, reach out to him or reach out to me, and
we'll make it worth your while.
Yeah, we'll make it. We'll put him up on the. He'll let you read his manuscript. And when it becomes a movie, you'll get an executive producer credit.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks, dude.
All right.
All right, everybody.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.